Global demand for electric vehicle batteries has become one of the most important economic and geopolitical forces of the 21st century. As nations accelerate their transitions toward clean transportation and renewable energy, the materials needed for lithium-ion batteries have surged to global strategic importance. Africa sits at the center of this transformation, supplying many of the world's most essential battery minerals and rapidly increasing its role in processing, refining, and industrial development. Across the continent, countries are beginning to reshape their position in the global supply chain, moving from raw material exportation to processing and value addition. This shift has attracted unprecedented attention from major global powers, especially China, which relies heavily on African resources to maintain its lead in battery manufacturing. At the same time, the United States and Europe are entering the competition, creating a new geopolitical environment where Africa's resources and industrial policies carry more influence than ever before. The foundation of Africa's strategic importance lies in its mineral wealth. The Democratic Republic of Congo produces around 70% of the world's cobalt, a critical component of most lithium-ion battery chemistries. South Africa controls the majority of global manganese reserves, used in next-generation battery formulations. Zimbabwe and Namibia contain significant lithium deposits that are drawing substantial investment from foreign companies. Madagascar and Mozambique are becoming major graphite producers, while Tanzania is emerging as an important source of nickel and additional graphite supplies. For decades, these raw materials were exported unprocessed, delivering limited economic benefit to African nations and leaving the majority of profits in the hands of foreign refineries and manufacturers. Now, African governments are implementing industrial policies designed to change this dynamic. Many nations have introduced legislation that restricts the export of raw minerals unless they are processed locally. These policies aim to develop domestic industries, create jobs, increase revenue, and establish Africa as a competitive force in the battery value chain. One of the continent's most ambitious initiatives is the DRC, Zambia Battery Council, a partnership designed to position Central and Southern Africa as a global hub for battery precursor production. Supported by Afreximbank and international development agencies, the initiative aims to establish large-scale industrial zones equipped with the infrastructure needed to refine cobalt, nickel, and other minerals into products suitable for battery manufacturing. Feasibility studies are underway for multi-billion-dollar plants capable of producing battery precursors at globally competitive standards. Zimbabwe has enacted a similar strategy by banning the export of raw lithium ore. The government requires foreign companies to build processing plants inside the country before they can access lithium deposits. As a result, several large lithium refining facilities are under construction. These plants will produce battery-grade materials rather than raw ore, marking a major shift in value capture and industrial development. Namibia is following a comparable path. The country has become an important player in both lithium and green hydrogen development, attracting investment from European and Asian companies. Namibia aims to become a leading exporter of refined lithium products while simultaneously developing renewable energy infrastructure to support clean industrial growth. South Africa, one of the most industrialized nations on the continent, is leveraging its vast manganese reserves to pursue leadership in manganese-rich battery chemistries. Research institutions and private companies are collaborating to commercialize advanced energy storage technologies that rely on South African minerals. These developments could reduce the global dependence on cobalt, creating new market dynamics that benefit African producers. Tanzania's nickel and graphite industries are also becoming central to the EV battery supply chain. Multiple mining projects are underway, supported by foreign investment from China, Australia, and the Middle East. Tanzania's goal is to establish itself as a regional hub for nickel processing, graphite refining, and battery-related manufacturing. While Africa expands its industrial capacity, China remains the world's dominant force in battery manufacturing. Chinese companies such as CATL, BYD, Huayu Cobalt, and CMOC have built extensive networks across Africa, securing access to mineral resources and establishing processing operations. China refiners process the majority of the world's cobalt and a large share of global lithium. Many of these refined materials originate from Africa. China's strategy in Africa is driven by its need to protect its position in the global battery supply chain. As demand for EVs grows, China requires stable, long-term access to cobalt, lithium, manganese, nickel, and graphite. African partnerships ensure that Chinese battery manufacturers can meet global demand while maintaining their competitive edge. Chinese companies have invested billions of dollars in African mining projects, transportation networks, and processing facilities. However, China's dominance faces new challenges. Western nations are attempting to diversify their supply chains due to geopolitical concerns. The United States, through the Inflation Reduction Act, is offering incentives for automakers to source critical minerals from regions outside China. This policy instantly elevated Africa's strategic significance. American government agencies and private companies are expanding their presence in African mining and processing projects. The European Union is also deeply invested in Africa's battery future. European automakers must meet strict emissions targets, and securing non-Chinese battery supply chains has become a top priority. Europe's Global Gateway Initiative is channeling funding into infrastructure, mining, and mineral processing across Africa. European companies are forming partnerships with African governments to develop sustainable and traceable supply chains that meet global environmental standards. Japan, South Korea, and India have also entered the African battery landscape. Each nation is pursuing long-term resource agreements and industrial collaborations, demonstrating Africa's growing global importance. As this competition intensifies, several large-scale African projects are gaining momentum. The DRC, Zambia Battery Strategic Zone, is one of the most transformative. If completed as envisioned, it would allow Africa to produce battery precursors on a scale that challenges existing global supply chains. This shift would reduce the continent's dependence on exports of raw minerals and increase its bargaining power in global markets. In Zimbabwe, Chinese, Australian, and British companies are building some of Africa's largest lithium processing plants. These facilities will produce lithium concentrate and refined products suitable for direct export to battery manufacturers. This marks a major evolution from Zimbabwe's past reliance on raw mineral exports and positions the country as a competitor in global lithium markets. Namibia's lithium and green hydrogen corridor is attracting billions in foreign investment. The combination of renewable energy capacity and mineral wealth makes Namibia an appealing location for clean industrial development. International partners are exploring the creation of vertically integrated supply chains where minerals are processed using clean power, reducing carbon emissions, and improving global competitiveness. South Africa's manganese value chain is undergoing modernization. The country has launched research and development programs focused on scalable battery technologies that rely on its manganese resources. If successful, these innovations could create new chemistries that lower costs and reduce global reliance on cobalt and nickel. Tanzania's nickel projects are expanding rapidly. In addition to mining, companies are investing in smelting and refining facilities designed to produce battery-grade nickel products. Tanzania's graphite industry is also gaining attention. Graphite is essential for battery anodes, and African production could help diversify global supply beyond China. Across the continent, universities, research institutions, and regional economic communities are collaborating on initiatives that develop technical skills, improve regulatory frameworks, and expand infrastructure. Africa's growing population of young engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs is contributing to a more sophisticated industrial environment. Despite these advances, challenges remain. Infrastructure gaps, particularly in electricity supply, transportation networks, and ports, affect the speed of industrialization. Many African countries also face financing limitations that slow the development of large processing facilities. Policy consistency, political stability, and regulatory clarity are essential for attracting sustainable investment. Even with these obstacles, Africa's influence on the global EV battery market is rising. Mineral-rich nations are asserting more control over their resources. Governments are negotiating better terms, prioritizing local processing, and demanding broader economic benefits. International competition for Africa's minerals is increasing, giving African nations more leverage than at any time in recent history. China's record trade deals with Africa reflect this shift. Many of these agreements now include commitments to build processing plants, develop local infrastructure, and invest in community development. China is adapting its strategy to match Africa's new policy demands, signaling a new phase in Africa-China relations. As global powers compete, Africa's importance is steadily growing. The continent is no longer viewed solely as a source of raw materials, but as a strategic partner capable of influencing global supply chains. Africa's decisions in the coming years will shape the future of electric vehicles, renewable energy storage, and clean technology industries. Africa's rise in the EV battery sector is ultimately a story of strategic transformation. The continent holds the minerals the world cannot transition without. It is expanding its processing capacity, attracting global investment, forming new industrial policies, and strengthening its regional cooperation. These developments have captured global attention and altered the balance of power in the battery world. Africa's role is becoming indispensable, not because it produces the most batteries, but because it controls the resources and emerging industries that the world depends on. The future of clean transportation and sustainable energy cannot be built without Africa. China recognizes this. Western nations recognize this. The global auto industry recognizes this. Africa is no longer on the sidelines of the world's technological future. It is helping define it.